Assimilation is an extremely simple NERF game mode that goes by many names, but I've always called it Assimilation. And the goal of the game is simply to be the last team remaining on the field. And you do that by tagging the other team and absorbing them into your team, which, let's back up a bit. Players are divided up into two equal teams, and each team is given a designated respawn point on opposite sides of the field. Players then go to that respawn point and play can begin. And once play begins, there's really only one rule. If you are hit by a dart, you are then immediately out of play. You throw your hand up or some other way to signify that you are tagged, and you walk to the other team's respawn point. Once you get there, you count in, let's say to 10, and then once you are back in, you are now on that team fighting against your previous team. And that's kind of the whole thing. Basically, players are just going to be switching sides back and forth until eventually one team is so much larger than the other team that they will just wipe out the last few survivors and everybody is one big happy amoeba. But despite the simplicity of the game mode, I really like this game because I think it has a lot going for it. Particularly if you have a lot of players that have a wide disparity in skill, ability, or in their gear. Because typically in head-to-head game modes, especially elimination, players that have limited mobility or are using blasters that are way under the FPS cap have a much harder time closing distance, and that makes it a lot harder to get tags. It doesn't make it impossible by any stretch of the imagination, but it is harder, and affordances have to be made in the way that your field is designed to make sure there's enough cover for players to actually push up and do stuff without getting tagged from like 300 feet away. For example, if one team has like 3 pew-pews and the other team is entirely running NERF Recon CS6s that are stock, yeah, they're going to have a hard time, but then they're going to get tagged, they're going to switch sides, and then now they're fighting against players of similar capability, and at the very least, they're not just getting wiped out every 3 seconds because now they're on the side that has the insanely high rate of fire sidearm that completely breaks the meta. And I'm not saying that winning is the only way to have fun. I adamantly believe that that is not the case, which I'll talk about another time, but walking back to respawn over and over is not particularly fun. You're just spending the whole time respawning instead of actually playing the game. So here, at least generally, you're always going to be doing something because you're never really out. And if you do notice that players are getting tagged out a little too fast, just eliminate the respawn time and have it so that they walk to the respawn and just immediately come back in and start fleeing foam. And it's just chaos and it's great. And on the flip side, this lets players who are very good at elimination do that and hunt down those last few players that are hiding in those trees way over in the corner. It is also fun to be the last players on a team trying to go out in a blaze of glory and holding out as long as you can. Basically, it's HVH instead of HVZ. I do want to note, however, that there are 2 scenarios where this game just doesn't work well. The first of which is if you have more than 2 teams, because since people are switching back and forth constantly, it's really hard to keep track of who's on which team, and the easiest way of doing that is the direction that they're facing, because if you have people facing opposite directions like this, hey, that person's looking this way, they're probably an enemy, I'm going to tag them. You have more than 2 teams, people are facing more than 2 directions, and now it gets confusing and you don't really know what's going on. It's just kind of messy. I have seen some clubs try to alleviate this by using colored tokens or reversible jerseys that you can kind of like grab and slap on yourself when you switch sides, but that just seems like an unnecessary complication to me. I just don't play with more than 2 teams. There's very little value added by doing it. And the other scenario is if you don't have enough players. This is one of those game modes that really depends on you having a larger pool of players to churn through. If you have like 4 or 5 people, it's just not going to work. Your game will be over in like 5 seconds. It's not going to work. So unfortunately, if you don't have a larger group, you're going to have a hard time making this game mode work for you. However, if you do only have a few players and you want something that kind of feels the same, you can go ahead and click on this video up here to check out speed rounds, which is kind of similar, but it works really well with only a handful of people. So do that. And other than that, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.